Hello there everybody, and welcome to a gorgeous day here at the TNT Ranch, where today we're going to have another fantastic episode number 3 of the greenhouse build series. Now behind me you'll see that the greenhouse looks a little bit different than it did at the end of episode number 2, and that's because we painted it. Now if you're in the process of building a greenhouse, or you're thinking about building a greenhouse and you're on the fence whether or not you want to paint it, it looks fantastic, it really does, and in the end I think we'll be happy. But it took me just as long to paint the frame as it did to build the frame. So something to keep in mind, 120 bucks worth of paint, and a good, I don't know, 16 to 20 hours of painting with a brush. Now if you use a sprayer, it's probably the wiser move, but remember that if you're thinking about painting the frame. Now we went ahead and painted the whole thing, and I recognize we're going to cover a lot of it up. But on the inside, whatever's going to be visible in those nicks and crannies, I think it's just easier to paint it all now, and that way we don't have to worry about it later. But in this episode, enough talking about framing. It's time to finally move on to the roofing system and installing the windows. And I'm pretty excited to do that, and a little bit anxious. Not sure how that roofing system's going to go, but we're going to learn together when we put it on top of the roof. So stay tuned, another great episode in store in the greenhouse series. So here's the product we'll be using on the roof. It's by TUFTEX. It's multi-wall polycarbonate corrugated sheets. And it comes in 48 by 96 inch clear sheets. So I don't know if you can see it laid out there on the moving map or not. But yeah, it's still covered in the protective film. Now you think 4x8 should be fairly easy to install. However, this particular system needs to be screwed down in a 2-foot by 2-foot grid. And I don't know how hard it's going to be to reach over a 4-foot sheet to put the screws in. We're going to find out together, but that's why I've got a 2-foot by 2-foot grid on the roof of the greenhouse. Also, there's going to be a ridge cap that's going to be screwed on as well. But there's no way to find out how hard this is going to be unless we get started. So let's do that now. To be honest, I haven't seen a whole lot about this system and found very little on it on YouTube. But apparently, in addition to the panels, you've got these H channels, and these are to be used between the panels. And then you've got a U channel that's to be used on the top and bottom of the panels. And it comes with, if you order with it, 2 different rolls of tape. So there's one on the outside you can say is vented. So that goes on the bottom of your panel, and I'm assuming that's to let moisture or condensation that may form inside of the dual wall system to run out the bottom. So you put the mesh on the bottom and a solid tape on the top. And then they are generous enough to sell you some special screws. And because I've never done this before, I don't know if I've ordered enough or too much, but we'll find out. Here's my first panel ready to go. It's cut the length. I've got the U channels and the tapes on the end, and the H channel on one side ready to accept the next panel. So fingers crossed, let's get it up there. As you can see behind me, I just finished up the TUFTEX roofing system, and I must say I'm very impressed. Now, I did learn a few things in the process. One, you can do it by yourself. Two, if you don't want the seams to be visible from the inside, don't space your rafters 48 inches apart like I did. The panels are 48 inches wide, but the H channel right in the center has about a 1/2 inch gap between where the two panels meet up. So I ended up having to cut a 1/2 inch off every panel to make them line up with the seam over top of my rafter. Bit of a pain in the butt, but if you're not worried about the internal visibility of the seam, you can just keep running all the way across. With the furring strips that go horizontally, you can just have your seams wherever. But that's something to remember there. Other than that, it worked out pretty well. It did take me about, I would say I got about 2.5 to 3 panels an hour. That's measuring them, cutting them, and installing them. So that's not too bad, but you know, there's a fair amount of panels there, so it took me a while. So I thought I would wrap up the roofing, the TUFTEX roofing system before moving on to doors and windows, and that's next, so stay tuned. In addition to all those modern windows that we picked up for free on Facebook Marketplace, also my wife picked these up. They're old school windows. I believe they're single pane, and they got the ropes that would have connected to the weights and everything. And a little too late to work those into my design for the greenhouse for the most part, but I do need a vent, and so there's this oddball window with the frosted glass, and I'm going to use that as a vent in the eave of one end of the greenhouse. So today my plan is to clean this up a bit and get it ready for some new paint. I also have to address the channel with the rope in it and cover that up. But yeah, working on this, a little bit of a change, and it'll be worked into the design of the greenhouse. This is the state we got that window into. So I've cleaned up the frame portion all the way around, sanded completely. Not going to mess with these cross members a whole lot. I'm just going to paint over them. I cleaned them up a little bit, but they're in good shape, and I don't want to mess up the putty by trying to strip the paint off them. So the next thing I'm going to do is prime it and then get ready to paint it white. It is finally time to start the windows now that the roof is done, and I think I'm going to start on the front and the back and then move to the sides. So I've already got the door frame installed and starting the window frames, but let's get cracking on windows. It is another gorgeous Saturday morning here at the TNT farm, and we've gotten started with the windows. During the evenings, during this week, I got these door panels that I picked up for $5 a piece, painted and installed. And I'm getting ready to install some of the windows. My wife, Kim, has done me a huge favor and has pulled the nails and peeled the old caulking off those windows that we picked up for free. So for the most part, they're ready to install. So I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of those installed. And then I may come back and put the door in and wait for a little bit of help to put the double windows in. So I've got the single windows installed. We still got to give them a good cleaning. They've been outside in the weather for quite a while, but we'll take care of that once we get all the windows in. But while I'm waiting for my help to get the bay windows in, the next thing I got to do is work on some custom windows in the apex of each of the ends of the gable. And for that, I'm going to be using leftover TUFTEX, which I used on the roof, just to cut out some translucent windows for up here. So that's next. Well, I'm super excited to say, finally done with the roofing and the windows on the greenhouse. It's been a few weeks working on that. We were blessed with some good weather weekends, and so that helped out a ton. But let me grab the camera. I'll show you what we got, and then we'll wrap up this episode. So we're going to begin here at the front, and I don't know how it's going to come through on the camera, but from my perspective, looking up at the greenhouse makes it look very tall from this angle. But on this end we used the two door panels, left and right of the main door. Those were $5 a piece. We cleaned them up and painted them and put those in. And then the center door, picked up it and the frame for $5. Now up above, we made some windows out of the TUFTEX, some custom cutouts. And then we've got one vintage window that my wife picked up that you saw earlier. I still got some work to do on it, get it trimmed out, but otherwise it's complete. Now right there in the center, you may see that there's a void, and that's going to be covered up with siding. I'm going to put another vertical brace in there and then cover that with siding, because my daughter made a very special custom sign for the greenhouse that we're going to put right in that spot. So that's the front of the greenhouse. Before I move to the side, here's a look through the TUFTEX roofing, and this is the extension that overhangs the door. And it achieved what I wanted it to. You can see it rained last night, but the stones there in the middle are dry. Now these temporary support posts, they're going to go away in the next episode. But let's move to the side, show you what that looks like. Now just a reminder, all the windows on the sides were absolutely free. Pick up from Facebook Marketplace. And when you're using used windows, the only thing perfect about them, again, is the price. They don't open and close quite as easy as a new window, and they come complete with dirt. But we'll clean the windows once we get the siding on and all wrapped up, and that'll really make them sparkle. Here at the back you'll see another big opening in the apex. That's where I'm going to be installing a ventilation fan. So I'm going to fill that in and then cut out a hole for the fan, and that's why that's not filled in just yet. But this is what the greenhouse looks like from the back corner. And before I go to how much this episode costs and what our total running costs are to date, I'll go inside and show you what it looks like looking out and up. So here we are standing in the back corner, looking towards the front door, up through the rafters, and up through the TUFTEX. Now I wouldn't want to try to read through them, but it certainly lets in a good deal of light when the sun is shining. Currently the dew from the morning and the rain last night is still on the roof. But yeah, I think this turned out extremely well. We're all quite pleased with the end results, but we're not quite to the finish yet. So right now I'm going to go on to the running total and the cost for this episode, and then we'll wrap it up. So like the previous two episodes, it's time to calculate the damage of what we've spent so far building our DIY greenhouse. And just a recap from episode 1, which was the foundations, we had spent $1,275 there. On episode number 2, which was the framing, we spent $1,215. Now on this episode, the biggest expense by far was the TUFTEX roofing system, which I used both on the roof and to make custom windows in the apexes of the greenhouse. And that was $1,350. The windows, now all the windows around the sides were free, but the 2 front door panels that I use for windows, left and right of the main door, were $5 a piece. So $10 for windows. The door and the frame were free. Again, picked that up on Facebook Marketplace as well. A little bit of lumber to frame in the custom windows that I built, and that was around $80. Paint is friggin' expensive. 2 gallons of paint, $145. Painting supplies, $30. Doorknob set, because the free door I got didn't come with a doorknob, was $30. I mean $35. Door and window hinges were $20. So for episode number 3, the total $1,670. Running total cost now $4,160. And before you call me up, Dad, yes, I'm over budget already, and I'm not quite done. But anyway, we're enjoying the process just the same. So let's get back to the wrap-up. Well, there you have it, everybody. Another episode complete. Greenhouse build number 3. TUFTEX roofing, free windows installation, little bit of custom work. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because you're going to want to see the next episode where we put on the siding, do some touch-ups. If you probably saw where I got a couple spots where I still have to paint on the inside, where I just removed some of the support bracing. But I got some other things in mind I want to do to this greenhouse as well, and you're not going to want to miss it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. I love to read them and answer them. And until the next episode, bye-bye.